We're going to talk about social networking. In the second chapter, we're really looking at how things have changed in our world in terms of communication, and we've got so many changes. We've got the new media. So what is the new media? Social media. We're very used to it by now for most of us, but this includes text messages, emails, instant messaging, any kind of instant messaging, and all of our social networking sites. That includes LinkedIn, Tumblr, Facebook, whatever we might be learning. It's very interactive, and it's full of user-generated content, which makes it exciting for us. We want to know what's happening because it's happening right now. Now, we talk about media with fuzzy boundaries, and that is it's out there, but we can choose to put it up, or someone may choose to put it up for us, and they can watch it later, or we can, sometimes the videos are streaming, right? So we have to be careful about that. We've got Twitter, and we may think we're just talking to someone really close, and it's going out to everyone. We may have followers we're not sure about, and blogs, which it feels like we're posting just for us, but actually it's going to a lot of people, especially if your blog is open and anyone can find it. So mediated versus face-to-face communication, what are we talking about here? In mediated communication, we talk a lot about the richness. And in face-to-face communication, that is a huge piece that makes it different. And richness refers to things like an abundance of nonverbal cues to add clarity to a message. So if I ask you to do something, you're not just hearing me ask you, but you're looking at me and you can see my nonverbal, excuse me, you can hear my nonverbal tone of voice, you can see what I'm doing with gestures, you can see my eye contact, it's all there together. Synchronicity is a key that makes mediated versus face-to-face communication different. Synchronous is what we call real time. So obviously in face-to-face communication, we are very much real time. We're talking to each other right there, right now. But in online, we can have both. We can have synchronous real-time communication based on the tools we used, but we can also have asynchronous. And this is probably what you've got if you've got an online class, or in our online class, this is what we've got. There's a time gap between sending and receiving of a message. And it is still transactional, because we're expecting a message back, and there's some pieces going on. If it's recorded, we have a better chance at this, but it's also that interactive piece, right? It's one, I send you the message, you take a look at it, you send it back, I'm expecting response, and my response online is, of course, your assessment form. You get that right back to me, right? That makes a difference. And how permanent is it? How permanent is it? In face-to-face communication, it's what we call transitory. We have a conversation, and then we're finished. And I might remember it, but guess what? I might not remember it exactly the way you say it unless I'm writing it down. But it happens, and then we move on. With mediated channels, which means when we talk about mediated communication, we're definitely talking about using some kind of electronic communication, like computers, where we're mediating the communication through the channel of the computer, email, text messaging, the phone. This enables indefinite storage records. Right? You've got records of everything you do, and it can stay there for a very long time. And if you doubt me, I think nowadays you take a look at your Facebook timeline and you can see quite a few things from several years ago. So how people use social media, there's a lot of different ways we use it. We use it for information. If I'm looking something up, then I can use social media to check with someone about what's happening. I can, I can send a message out to someone to find out what's going on, and what kind of information they have on something. I can find out, if somebody wants to work my shift, or if there's a mechanic nearby, I can check Yelp, right? There's a lot of different things I can do for it. It also can be used for personal relationships. I want to see what my friends are up to, and maybe check in with my friends on the East Coast, or maybe my family members on the East Coast. And if I want to announce a change, like for example, one of my students was telling me she just announced she was engaged, and she announced it on Facebook. She got a lot of friends and family that are far away, and it was very exciting. And many people use the internet now to do online dating, to find a partner. It's not unusual at all anymore. And we also look at it in terms of our personal identity. This it's interesting too, because the book talks about observing other people as models. In other words, helping us to become more effective. We look to trusted others. We maybe assert our values and get feedback from others. We assert our values, for example, by if we're on Facebook, we like certain sites, we share certain sites, and that tells other people about us. And it also tells us about other people when we get a chance to look at that. And I do want you, there is a couple of different videos there to look at these, looking at our identity, and that video on Alone Together. What does that say about us? Right? And also, social media is used for entertainment. Gaming online, sharing our music, playlists with other people, or joining, it talks about a fan base, but joining some of these games or these pieces, that's something that we also do online, and it's a way that we use social media. Some people have a great time and they enjoy themselves tremendously on social media, and some of us don't use it very much. It really varies. We all use it for different things, and that's just fine. Now, how can we communicate competently with social media? There's a few things that we can do. What do we do when we're using social media and we want to be competent? One of the first things we can do is choose the best medium for our communication. What is the best medium that we want to use? Sometimes it's something that's pretty evident. If your friend says, give me a call, she or he wants you to call her on the phone, on your cell, or on, gosh, I'm not sure, however you can in terms of either using line to line, or you might even use your computer to make a Google connection and make a phone call. And that's one way of doing it. You want to choose the best channel to be sensitive. In our textbook on page 49, there is a chart there, table 2.5, gives us some examples of face-to-face, voicemail, email, instant messaging, and why this might be considered the best or not the best medium to use for it. Is it synchronous? Is it, is it happening right away? How much richness is in the media? If you want to tell someone something very sad or very difficult, you might want to choose a media that's very rich so that you can convey your message very clearly. And how much control do you have over it? How much control do you have over the receiver's attention? That actually is an important piece. If you really want them to hear you, then we need to be aware of this when we're working with this other media. So take a look at that chart and understand what might be the best medium to send our message and to communicate with others. Be careful with what you post. Be very careful, because you just aren't sure, who's going to look at it. Is it going to be one of those things that lives forever? Is it going to be something that's accessible to everyone? This was something that just a few years ago, it was quite a bit of conversation. People would go to, students would maybe go to parties or do something, they were supposed to be at work and they were out having a good time hiking or something, and they would post it on their site, and then others from work or maybe their boss would see it and they would get themselves in a difficult situation. So you need to be careful about what you post. Right? So what's another thing that we want to think about? Being considerate, right? Be considerate. When you post, be considerate about other people. So they used to call this etiquette, right? Or just having some consideration. So be careful when you're putting things up there. Respect other people's need for what we call undivided attention. If you are working on something here and there's someone with you or there's somebody around you, be careful to pay attention to them. If you go to dinner with someone, in fact, this is becoming more common. People go to dinner and they take their cell phones out and they put them all in a pile in the center, and the first person that takes that cell phone might be the one who maybe buys dessert or pays for part of dinner. So let's be very careful. Really, a competent communicator is aware and present to the person that they're with. If you need to talk to someone on the phone and you're out with someone at dinner, excuse yourself and maybe take yourself to a different spot to take care of that. Or believe me, if you are working on a team, you definitely do not want to be answering your cell phone or doing texting or watching Facebook during your team meeting. I have had students complain about that once or twice in the past, and they very definitely downgraded the scores of their teammates during that situation, because when everyone comes to a team meeting or goes to a business situation, a business meeting, you want to make sure that your attention is right there. And when you are communicating with social media, make sure you keep your tone civil, that you are respectful to others. Be respectful. No snide comments. And this is actually pretty important, because one of the things that happens when we are communicating is that we are what we call disinhibited. We are no longer inhibited from saying something to someone that we might be we might be a little shy to say that to their face. And so, but what we found in research is that when people go online, we think perhaps we're anonymous, or that we can just say it because we don't get an immediate response that challenges our face. So we might say something that might be a little bit rude or a little bit sharp, and that's terrible. And sometimes people are just vicious, and a competent communicator does not do this, we really want to try and be aware, as we talked about earlier, to be mindful of the communication that we're putting out there. When we're in a communication with someone, this is a relationship. There is a relationship going on. Okay? You are not anonymous. You are not being attended to when you're in this communication. So you may be unhappy, and if that's a problem, then kind of take a step back and come back to it when you are calm. In fact, people often say if you're angry and you want to send, put together an email and you're very angry, you want to dash the email off, and then you realize, I shouldn't have done that. So what sometimes people will say is write it all tonight and then look at it again tomorrow when you've cooled off a little bit and decide. And I think the best tip that you can get in terms of an asynchronous situation and being posting online or sending an email is to ask yourself, would you say the same thing in person? If this person was, and be honest with yourself. There's no reason to lie to yourself. Say the same thing in person, because when you transmit messages without considering consequences, that is a definite problem. That's a definite problem, okay? And make sure that we respect the privacy boundaries of someone else. If you run into information about someone just doing a general search, step back and, you might not want to tell the person, unless you're very, very close, you don't need to tell the person, I saw your situation online. They're well aware of that. Or if you get a little invitation to search for someone's private information, because there are a lot of companies that take money for doing that, I would say, take a look at that for yourself. Do you really need to know it? Is it something you need to know? Because that can cause some very, very serious problems. Right? So the next thing we want to think about is balance mediated and FaceTime. As a competent communicator, you want to have a little bit of everything in that relationship, in our communication. We can use email. We can become very close to people through email, through texting, or even through our cell conversations or Facebooking. But really, we need to balance that with some face-to-face interactions so that our relationship can develop with the combination of these both pieces, because that helps our relationship significantly when we've got both in our communication. And then be very careful about safety. And what we're talking about here is watch out. We spend a lot more time online, and we want to make sure that we are talking to the person that we think that we're talking about. Be careful about disclosing information. If you're on a public computer, you have to be very, very careful. Really, and I would say actually in emails or just about everything, always think that someone else could see it. So don't put information out there that's very, very private. That type of information might be the kind of thing that you want to say for a face-to-face conversation, because it's definitely an issue. And not just safety in terms of our personal information or someone else's, but really be safe in terms of the actual physical act of texting, for example, because you don't want to text while you're driving, now do you? We all know that that's a dangerous thing to do. Not just against the law, but it's very dangerous. For your own personal safety, it's just not worth it, right? So be careful about all of these pieces, and being a competent communicator when you use social media, it can add to your communication tool chest in terms of other ways that you choose to be competent as a communicator. This is one of those pieces that really says, what is my skill, and can I practice that communication skill well?